Hello everyone, it's me Jamie. Welcome to my June wrap up. Like I always say, you guys know how these videos work. I'm just going to go through all of the books that I read in June, tell you what's worth it, what is maybe not worth it, and yeah, we're just gonna get started. So I definitely had I'm not gonna say the worst reading month. It definitely wasn't the worst, but I definitely read the least this month than I have all year. I read 8 books. Usually my average is like 12-ish, but yeah, I read 8 books, so not a lot of reading really done in June for me personally if I'm comparing myself to the previous months, but that's just because I had a whole lot of life changes, as I'm sure you guys kind of know about now. But regardless, I still read some really good books and I cannot wait to share them with you. The first book I read was Happy Place by Emily Henry. Now, I was very highly anticipating this one just because I know how much everyone has been looking forward to it, and I've seen so many rave reviews on this novel, so many people praising it, and I unfortunately only gave it 3 stars, but I definitely like didn't hate it or anything. I still enjoyed my time reading it, but if I'm looking back at the other Emily Henry books that I have read, it just didn't impress me as much as those other books. Basically, everyone knows what this book is about, but I'll just do a brief summary. We follow our main characters, Harriet and Wynne. They are currently going through a breakup and they're hiding it from their friends, and they go on this vacation with all of their friends. It's like the last one that they can kind of take together. While they're on this vacation, they kind of are battling their feelings for each other while also like trying to hide this massive life change from all of their mates. I think at the end of the day, I just don't know if like a marriage in turmoil, relationship in turmoil kind of book is my vibe. I don't know if it's my favorite trope. I don't know, it just kind of felt really bleak and I didn't have the most fun reading it. I also found that the book dragged on a lot and I was actually unfortunately quite bored at some stages. However, I think there's no disagreeing that Emily Henry is a very talented writer. When I read her books, I am always blown away at her writing, at some of the beautiful quotes that are in this novel. She's definitely like got a lot of talent. This just wasn't really a plot that I was super interested in, nor was I super invested in the characters. Were they well developed? Yeah, sure, but they just weren't really like my sort of people. I also feel like there was a lot of like friendship drama in this novel, and I don't know, the B storyline, it didn't really blow me away. I wasn't super interested. So unfortunately, yeah, I was a little bit disappointed by this one, but I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it. I had a nice time. Probably won't be thinking about it too much again, and I just didn't really buy in to the hype that I have seen. But yeah, glad to have this done so it's not looming over me for like the rest of the year. And I do recommend, but I recommend book lovers and people we meet on vacation much more than this one. Next, I read a thriller, and that was 9 Lives by Peter Swanson. I had a really great first impression with Peter Swanson. I read his novel The Kind Worth Killing, absolutely loved it, one of my favorite thrillers, 5 out of 5 stars. Every single book I've read of his since then, well, I've only read 2 more since then, but they've both been 2 stars. This one was really disappointing, definitely a 2-star read for me, and yeah, not great. I honestly feel like I've blocked a lot of this book from my memory, to be honest. Basically, the plot of this novel is we follow 9 strangers who aren't connected in any way, shape or form. They all live all over the country, and they all received a letter that is just a list of 9 names, and the people that received that letter, their name is on that list. Slowly everyone gets killed off one by one. It's a very and then there were none kind of novel, and I think we follow some other kind of side characters who were just trying to like stop this from happening. They're going under investigation. I think one of the funnest parts for me was seeing how everyone got killed off. Like the morbid side of me really liked some of those like creative ways that people were killed, but at the end of the day it was just really boring. I feel like the characters weren't really that fleshed out. Like there wasn't exactly room for them to be fleshed out, especially considering each chapter it's really short, and it will be from like one character's perspective, and then immediately we'll jump to another one, and we're following like 9 characters, but also the characters that are on the periphery of their lives, and it was just a bit too much. I didn't find it very interesting at all, unfortunately. I also found like kind of the the big plot twist to just be really morbid and depressing, but not in a way that is like fun to read about. It wasn't like a moment where I was like, oh my god, like the drama of it all. I literally was just like, that's really sad and awful. And I don't know, it just kind of made me hate it a bit more. Like maybe it could have been sitting on a 3 at some stages of the book, but for the most part it just wasn't really that entertaining. It was kind of a slog to get through, and yeah, I hated the ending. So if you are going to read Peter Swanson, at this stage, I would say only read The Kind Worth Killing, because the other books I read by him are just not as good. I will continue to read some of the other books by him that I own, that I haven't read yet, but yeah, this one wasn't great. Okay, on a more positive note, I then read a book on my Kindle, on Kindle Unlimited, and that was Mile High by Liz Tom Ford, and 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely loved this. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did, but oh my god, it was so good. This is basically a romance between our 2 main characters, Xanders and Stevie. Xanders is the bad boy of the Chicago hockey team, and Stevie is an air hostess on their private plane for the season. They are not allowed to like have any sort of romance, which is honestly fine at first. They get off to a really bad first impression. Xanders definitely doesn't like prove himself to be a good guy in that first interaction, but then a very intense whirlwind, like epic romance kind of progresses from there. This book is just like everything that I want in a romance novel. Like when I'm looking for a romance novel to read, I want something like this. It's slow burn, there is drama, the characters are so well fleshed out. They've also got their own problems, but their own problems are really interesting, and I care about them both as individual people. The way the romantic relationship progressed was so good. Pacing, it was amazing. I genuinely really loved this. I've heard a lot of people say that like they don't like romances that are over 500 pages. Like there is no need for a romance book to be over 500 pages. But honestly, most of my favorite romances are like around the 600-700 page mark, and this is no exception. I just genuinely think like, yes, it's long, but you can get through it so quickly because it's just so iconic. Like it's so easy to read and it's so addicting, and the writing is just really good. I cannot wait to read more from this series. I really hope to read the next book in the series because I really like the character, or the 2 characters that's going to be about. But yeah, honestly, this book is really good. So if you are looking for a Kindle Unlimited romance and maybe you haven't read a lot of romances before, this is a really good place to start. I loved it. I understand the hype. I understand why everyone is talking about this series now. After that, I read Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino, and I actually did read this for an episode in my Reading My Physical TBR series, so I do have a full reading vlog on this novel on my channel. This was another 2-star read. I really did not like this. I just found it to be really silly, boring characters, really annoying. Like it's just not my cup of tea. It's not my writing style. But basically in this novel, this is a second chance romance. We follow our 2 main characters. I literally forgot their names. The guy, I think his name is Matt, and then the girl, no, how could I forget this? The girl's name is Graceland Marie Starr. That's her full name. Anyways, they have this really intense romantic relationship in college, and then they completely lose touch, and one day Matt like sees Grace on the subway in New York and they reconnect. It just wasn't really for me. I found the structure of the novel to be really weird. Like we literally had like 20 pages of the present day, and then we just had like this massive kind of recount of their college days, and then we go back to the present day, and I just feel like none of it was earned. I really like dual timeline and dual POV novels, but it just wasn't spliced up in a way that was super effective to the story, I don't think. Like I like finding out what happened in the past in little splices. I think we could have spent more time in the present day for me to buy their relationship by the end of the novel, but I'm actually glad it was as short as it was because I did not want to spend any more time with these characters. I can understand the appeal for some people. I can understand why some people would be into this novel, but there were just so many little pet peeves that I had that I just wasn't a fan of. I didn't like how our characters communicated with each other. I didn't like that Graceland was like very much a hyper unrealistic manic pixie dream girl. That's not my sort of romantic heroine that I want to read about. And then Matt was just like a little bit obsessive and weird for me. So yeah, not my type of book, unfortunately. Can understand why it might be to some people's taste, but it's just not to mine. And I actually have read another Renee Carlino book. I think I read another one last month, and I didn't like that one either. So I do think I will be giving up on this author, which is fine. I only owned this one and the other one that I read. I have no more on my physical TBR, and I won't be adding any more to my physical TBR. I just don't think her writing style and my taste mesh very well. But yeah, this was an unfortunate 2 stars, but if you do want to hear more of my thoughts, like very in-depth, you can watch my reading vlog on this novel, which is on my channel like kind of recently. Then I read Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is a rom-com between our 2 main characters that work for the same news station. Our female main character, Ari, is a weather girl. She's a meteorologist. She works in the weather department. And then our male main character, Russell, works in sports. Both of their bosses of their separate departments are divorced, and they're making it a really bad working environment for everyone. Like, it's just uncomfortable and no one's getting the attention that they deserve from their bosses. So Ari and Russell, who are like already kind of friendly acquaintances, friendly workmates, team up and try and get their bosses back together. Honestly, when I was reading this novel, the first half of the book I was absolutely in love with. I was like, this is gonna be one of my new favorite rom-coms. It's so fun. I love these characters. I do think that the pacing was a little bit off though. I feel like our characters just kind of came together a little bit too quickly, and then there was, you know, a really big 3rd act conflict, which I wasn't a fan of. I do feel like we spent the majority of the second half of the novel with this 3rd act conflict, and I just wish that had been edited down a bit, but then the relationship development had been a little bit more fleshed out. I do feel like it wasn't really insta love because it was like a friends to lovers, like they already knew each other, but as soon as they got to know each other more, they were kind of like immediately obsessed with each other, and I just wish that we got to see more of their kind of friendly vibe before they like fall into bed together. However, it was really the characters that sold this one for me. I thought Russell and Ari were such good characters, really well fleshed out. Ari also does deal with depression, and the conversations about that were really well done. I really liked reading those chapters, and it was still a really like light-hearted, feel-good novel, but just with some deeper topics kind of running underneath, and I really liked that. Like, I liked that we were dealing with tricky situations and hard discussions, but in a really kind of like feel-good way. I think the book could have been a little bit depressing if it wasn't doing that, and a book like this, I'm not looking to feel depressed, I'm looking to feel happy. Honestly though, I do really recommend this book. Like, even if I gave it 3 stars, that doesn't mean that it's a bad novel. I genuinely really enjoyed my time reading it, and I definitely do recommend it to other rom-com fans. After that, I read my Patreon book club book for the month, which was Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Malors. So I do have a full spoiler-filled reading vlog for this on my Patreon, and I really enjoyed this novel. I will just say that immediately. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's definitely the best book that I read this month. So unfortunately, I didn't have any 5 stars this month. But this was like a really high 4 stars. I really liked it. Basically, this is very like Sally Rooney-esque. It's very normal people vibes. We follow our main characters, Coco and Frank, and they meet at a Halloween party one year and have this immediate connection. Cleo is like in her early 20s and Frank is 20 years older than her. So immediately reading this, I was like, this isn't the sort of relationship that I'm gonna be rooting for. And it definitely is that sort of novel. Like, it's a romance, but it's not romantic. Or it is romantic, but it's not a romance. I don't know, it's a book about a relationship, but not like in the romance genre, I don't think. Anyways, I really liked this novel. I really liked how we had a massive cast of characters and they were all kind of like interwoven into each other's stories, and we got to see different perspectives of the other characters, where Cleo and Frank are kind of the through line through everyone's lives. It's the reason why these people all know each other. But I really like that we got to see other people's lives as well as Cleo and Frank's. I think the writing was immaculate. It was so good, and I love how no one in this novel was a particularly like good person. There were no like good guys and bad guys. There are definitely characters that I liked more than others, but it was just really human and really real, and I really liked that. I found myself rooting for people that maybe I shouldn't have been rooting for. When I finished the book, I was like confused about how I felt about some of the characters. But the only reason I didn't give it a 5 stars is there were just like a few tiny details that I wasn't a fan of. For example, there are a lot of time jumps in this novel, which I'm not mad at. Like, I don't mind a lot of time jumps. If something is unnecessary, then that's fine. I don't need to read about it. But there were some moments that I just wish were on the page that we heard about talking in like past tense. They're like, oh, this happened, but I kind of wish that those moments weren't skipped over. That's really it. Like, it's the smallest detail, but still such a good novel. If you are a literary fiction fan, if you're a fan of Sally Rooney, I highly recommend this novel. It's so good, and yeah, this is definitely my favorite of the month. And then after that, I kind of went on a Kindle Unlimited Frida McFadden binge. So the next book that I read was One by One by Frida McFadden on Kindle Unlimited. This is a thriller about a married couple who are kind of hating each other right now. Their marriage is kind of a bit tumultuous, and they end up going on this vacation with their friends, 2 other couples. They're going to this like isolated inn in the woods, but when they're on their way there, the van breaks down and they are lost in the forest trying to get there, and slowly people get killed off one by one. It was just a really exciting novel. Like, there were lots of twists and turns, and it definitely, I don't know, like, it's one of those books, it's a thriller, you read it, you read the premise, you're like, oh, this is not gonna go well, and yeah, nothing kind of really went well for our characters, but I still really enjoyed my time reading it. I definitely kind of guessed some of the plot twists, but the drama of it all while reading it was so fun. Frida McFadden just writes really bingeable thrillers, and is this perfect? No, but did I give it 4 stars and really enjoy my time reading it? Absolutely. So I think this is definitely a really good place to start if you are looking to get into Frida McFadden, because she does have such a massive backlist. And then after reading this, I then read Never Lie, also by Frida McFadden. Honestly, she's one of my favorite thriller authors at the moment. Like, her books definitely aren't the best thrillers I've ever read, but I just have so much fun reading them. So Never Lie is about a psychiatrist who went missing. That's like one of the storylines, and then the other storyline is these newlyweds who are looking to buy a house, and they end up getting stranded looking at the psychiatrist's old house as a potential like purchase for them. They're snowed in, they have to stay there, and while they're there they uncover all these secrets about the case of the psychiatrist who went missing. So when I first started reading this, I was like, I feel like this is going to be my first flop for Frida McFadden. Like, I feel like I'm not going to enjoy this. I was convinced that I had guessed the plot twist from the get-go. I was like, oh, it's going to be this. I literally finished it yesterday, and I sat up. Like, I was lying down in bed. I literally sat up and was like, oh, like, Frida, how do you do this to me? Like, I think she was trying to make this plot twist really obvious. And so I was like, oh my god, I'm a genius. Like, yeah, obviously it's gonna be that. And then when it wasn't, I was like, no, stop, Frida, like, what are you doing? It was so good and so exciting. Like, genuinely, that moment, I was like, I love this novel. So I gave this one 4 stars as well. I thought this one was super creative, and I think this particular Frida McFadden novel is probably the one that has my favorite character, like my favorite main character in the book. I really loved our main character, Trisha. I thought she was just, at first I was like, she's a wet sock, but then like as the story went on, I was like, she's brilliant and I love her. So yeah, definitely really recommend this one. I think this one is probably on the same level as The Housemaid for me, which is my favorite one so far. So yeah, if you're looking to get into Frida McFadden, feel free to hit me up, because I've read 6 of her books now and I've enjoyed my time every time. So those are all the books that I read in June. Please let me know what your favorite book you read in June was, and if you agree or disagree with any of my opinions. Again guys, thank you so much for watching. I feel so grateful that you have chosen to spend your time with me today, and I really hope you enjoyed the video. A cheeky reminder that all my socials are linked down below, along with my Patreon, so if you do want extra content from me, feel free to check that out. All of the information is on the page. But yeah, guys, again, thank you so much for watching. I cannot wait for all the books that I'm going to read in July. So I will see you very soon in the next video.